Final hour overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Dear Hayesy-B in half an hour, a rare Thursday appearance of Dear Hayesy-B. So we'll get to that. Yeah, it's going to be a good one at 6:30 today. Darren Pang coming up. Panger was down there calling the Rangers-Capitals game last night. Get his take on Alex Ovechkin up close and personal and what he expects between now and tomorrow at 3 p.m. Also, he covers the Blackhawks pretty closely. I saw Bedard doesn't have a point in like 7 games.
I barely noticed him last night.
Yeah, not a point, man. No points.
I watched that game last night, the Ottawa game there before the Leaf game. He had one dangerous shot on goal that Allmark could right pad save on.
That's whatever it is, but you know when it's going to be dicey? July 1st.
Right, he's due for an extension at that point.
So what are you going to do there?
Yep.
Are you just going to hand him over the 8x8 or whatever the hell's been going on? Or are you going to say, let's just play this out a little bit? I'd be playing it up. I wouldn't be handing over anything, man.
I'm the other way. I think you give him the 8x8, but you give him the 8-year deal, but it better not be a number that's through the roof.
What do you think he would take right now? You think he'd take, if they said, we'll give you $80 million on an 8-year deal right now, you think he'd take it?
$10 million a year?
Yeah.
Man,
you'd give him $10 million a year right now?
Here's why I would do that. If you believe it.
Comment.
I'll tell you why.
No.
Because he's got a year left on the deal. So what it is you've got him locked in for 9 years.
9 years.
If the cap's $140 million when this guy's in his prime and you're paying him $10 million, that's brilliant business. Yeah. If you believe he will be the superstar you've always believed he would be, I would jump on that contract if I'm Chicago.
What if you have doubts, though? What does that mean, dollar-wise?
That is concerning, obviously. If you have doubts, then you bridge them and you make them prove it. And I could understand that mentality, but if you look at it, if you've always believed that's been our guy, and they have to still believe that way. I mean, Bedard, he's 19 years old. He's still a kid. The team is terrible, and he's in a rut. It's a bad spot right now. But I don't know if he would take that. I don't know if that would be. His agent might say we can't take that, man.
Are you kidding me? An 8-year deal at $10 million? You're saying he wouldn't take that?
Oh,
I'm not sure
who
he would.
His agents are, right? Like it's Newport. They know the market. They're not.
Well, I know,
they don't leave money on the table.
But it's about like predicting, right? Like how can you really know the market on a 19-year-old?
The bottom line is I don't care who the agent is. My agent, your agent. Like when $80 million is presented, let's get serious. You're stupid not to sign that.
I think that's a big number. But you are going to eat up a bunch of his career, and you're right. You got 9 years. There would be a give and take. But if you believe that he is going to be the face of your franchise for all of that, why not give him?
You'd sign that in a heartbeat.
I would sign it. But what you're saying is, it's the Blue Jays and Vladdy. They see something, so they're like, they're not giving this guy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how they proceed. Like I don't know how they're viewing what they're seeing out there. That's going to be the interesting thing. But if he says no to $80 million and then he goes out there and rips home 22 goals the season after, what's he going to do then?
Yeah.
Well, then the pressure's on him at that point, clearly. But
I'd say.
The Ronald Acuna scenario where Anthopoulos and the Braves were like, here, we'll give you a 10-year deal at $100 million, and the guy took it.
That was the best contract in Major League Baseball.
Absolutely. When he's had injury problems, but when he's healthy, he's one of the
But
5 or 6
at that
best
time,
players in the
Hayes,
game.
he and his agent, more probably the player, said, they want to give me $100 million. And he's like, I'm not turning that down.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. And part of that, I'm sure, is his upbringing and all that. And he's like, it's a lot of money. I'm taking it. But that was Anthopoulos being very savvy. And like, man, I'll throw it to him. Maybe he'll take it. Oh, he did. This is amazing. And Bedard, like trying to get a win on a salary cap is so huge, man. And like you mentioned the Jays, the problem that they ran themselves into here was they were adverse to any possible element of gambling, or risk. They didn't want to pay Vladdy 2 years ago when he hadn't really proved it yet because they were like, well, what's he going to be? And now he's like, well, now it's going to cost you $500 million. Wow, let's not get stupid. It's like, well, you didn't want to offer me anything 2 years ago. So that's your problem, not mine.
Dude, they were dealing with arbitration cases, let alone offering anything.
Exactly. and no interest in signing him. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like they had any interest in a long-term deal. with
And
Ryan.
the ARB cases, that would be the thing that would make me want to put the screws to the team. Everyone else is getting cake, and you're making me go to ARB 2 or 3 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you the business back.
Well, they're getting it now, man. They're getting it. So yeah, well, I'm curious to see where that Bedard scenario goes. Like, it's a very good point that he is open to or available to a contract extension as of July 1st, and what Chicago ends up doing there. You see him on the NHL on TNT, covers the Blackhawks closely. He joins us all the time on OverDrive, and we always love having him on. Here's our good friend Darren Pang. How you doing, Panger?
I'm doing fantastic. Dog, I would never take you to arbitration. I just give you what you wanted, bud.
Yeah, Jimmy Rutherford did.
And he also had some comments for O-Dog as well in arbitration.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Jimmy
seem,
said
that doesn't seem right.
the guy asked him first. Said Jimmy, would you consider yourself a hockey expert? And he said yes. And then he said, well, how would you assess Jeff O'Neill's play in the series against Boston? And Jimmy said, of all the hockey I've watched, that's the worst a player could possibly play in a 7-game series. And I literally was so pissed, Panger. And I get it, arbitration. You got to come up with some content to kind of plead your case. But I was I didn't want to play for Carolina ever again.
Oh.
That's just the way it went, though.
Okay, let me ask you this, O-Dog. Were you any good in that series?
I mean, I don't think I was terrible. There's no way that I was the worst a player the worst he'd ever seen.
That's not good. That's not good. That's tough negotiating. That's not right. When they say
arbitration,
it's a business,
what I don't understand, Panger, is why the player needs to be in there. Like, it's just arbitration should gas the players from being in the meeting. Like, forget it. It's stupid.
Yeah, it's too many harsh things get said, and like guys like you or guys like us that you have a few layers of thick skin, you're not going to want to come back. You don't feel like you're wanted. Yeah, that's a tough position, boy. Really tough. Boy.
It's a grind, man. It's a grind, and we were just talking about Connor Bedard, and he's, I don't think he's got a point in his last 7 games, and he's had some ups and downs this year, but he's he'll be in a position where he could sign an extension as of July 1st. And we were curious, should Chicago try to get out in front of this and offer him an 8-year deal at $10 million and hope he signs it, or is that asking too much from a kid that hasn't really proven enough over 2 years? Like, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I look at some of the other deals that were signed early that caught me by surprise. I mean, Beniers signed like right off the hop, didn't he? Mm-hmm. I think Fantilli's up as well. Leo Carlson. So, you like to see where those guys are at, but none of them have been marketed or played up or have had as much responsibility, in growing the game or being responsible for so many different things in the game like Connor has. So there's a lot of, listen, guys, there's a lot of value that I see here in Chicago that Connor brings to the table. I mean, you go around the rinks and man, that's all you see are 98 sweaters. They're hovering around going onto the ice and signs for him and what have you. So he's had it different than those guys. He's had a lot more pressure than those guys have had. Make no mistake about it. But would Kyle Davidson? I tell you one thing about Kyle Davidson right now that I'm really impressed with is there's no information that comes out of the Chicago Blackhawks, is there? Hey, you talk about a young general manager and his staff, Brian Campbell, Norm McIver, and his group, and nobody heard a peep about Seth Jones. So I would imagine in this scenario that whether things are talked about now or whether they're discussing where they want to go on it, I'm not sure. But I do know one thing: you're not getting much information out of this organization right now, which is really good to hear. Now, going back to your original question, would he be worth? You go 8 times $10 million a year. With the cap going up, he's the star player of the team. He still had 30 points in 30 games. He's still going to be only the 4th teenager to go consecutive 50-point seasons and lead his team or something like that. I mean, the players in the last 30 years that have done it are pretty elite players. He's got a lot of growing to do. But I think when you see that deal, if that deal were to be the deal, I think that would be a win-win for both sides, in my opinion.
So, Panger, just to sticking with the Blackhawks, obviously, they're a team in transition and looking to add and all of that as far as, building around Bedard. Just a little insight on Seth Jones. What do you think is left in the tank for him? Do you think he'll be reinvigorated in Florida, different role, different setting, all of that type of stuff?
Yeah, and number one, Noodles, that guy, he treated us all real well here, a real pro, not a boisterous guy at all. You kind of got to seek him out, to talk to him about hockey. And then you start talking about hockey and life, and he's a pretty even-keeled guy. He's got a lot left in the tank, easily. He plays 25 minutes a night, Noodles. He probably was more scrutinized here on the offensive side of it. And still, he was having a really good year and scoring on the power play. But I think his defending, Noodles, is what's going to be the difference maker for Florida in the playoffs. He's good. He stops the cycle. He's the long stick, the long reach. Just great on angling and not overly physical, but and I think he's going to be really effective in the playoffs. And I think the pressure's on him too, because he said a lot of things here that kind of, put Kyle Davidson in a really rough spot, put the coaching staff in a rough spot. He was frustrated. He said some things. He talked about getting out. And then he's got a no trade, no move. So he's only got a couple of teams. And from what I understand, one of the teams had already said no. So really there was one team left on the table, Noodles, and that was the Florida Panthers. So to strike this kind of deal was pretty impressive. And now it does put the pressure on him. He's going to a winning environment, and he's got to play ultra competitive hockey right there and not just blend in. I mean, he's got to go in there and step in and be a difference maker for him for all that they gave up and for what he gets paid and I think for what kind of player he is. So already, the first game, didn't he play 22 and a half minutes, like right off the hop? He's a guy that he just craves the minutes, and the coaches just see him, and he doesn't seem like he's never out of breath. And then they just throw him right over the boards again, and he's got a pretty good engine.
With Darren Pang, that would apply to Alex Ovechkin as well. He scored again last night. You were calling the game, and he's now 9 away from tying Gretzky, 10 away from setting the record. What's he still look like up close and personal?
Unbelievable. I mean, one of the guys, who was it with the Rangers that looked over at him? I think it was that young Hoffman, and OV was sitting on the bench right to my right, and in the commercial break, and Hoffman just looked over and he goes, "Man, he's bigger than I thought." He still looks like such a prominent guy. Yeah, exactly right. And that game last night, I think he would admit that there wasn't a whole lot going on in the game. They had a couple power plays. I thought the Rangers did a really good job of kind of taking away. They pushed him to the outside, and one of the things I wanted to convey last night was as a goal scorer, he scores, or people assume he scores a lot of goals in that one area. So I showed some video of him this year scoring in other areas. Like, he is scoring in the slot. I think he's got the biggest percentage of goals are right in the house, not off to the side. I think he's only got 6 or 7 one-timers off to that same side. And so he's changed his game. He's getting around the ice a lot more. He's less predictable, and I think they're having some success with that. And last night I tried to say, I really give the coaching staff, young coaching staff, Spencer Carberry and, Kirk Muller and that staff are really good, but they're also really good at negotiating and selling too. They're saying, hey, maybe the Backstrom days are gone. Maybe the Oshie in the bumper spot, that's not there anymore. We got to move you around a little bit more and make you more unpredictable. And I think he's done an unbelievable job of that. And, what he scored last night, his 31st goal at Madison Square Garden. So including playoffs and regular season, that's the second most in the history of the National Hockey League at MSG. Only Mario had more at 37. So
wow. You think that pretty team good night scares for him. Anybody? You think that team scares anybody, Panger? Like, everybody says the same thing about the Caps, or I've heard it a lot. They do a lot of great things, very well coached. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't know if they scare anybody, or is that just something that they just have to prove come playoff time?
You know what I think, Doug? I think the experience that they gained last year getting into the playoffs was really good. I mean, just getting their toes in the water and experiencing going to Madison Square Garden for the first 2, facing the President's Trophy winners. Although they lost, I think that experience is absolutely invaluable. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that a team that plays them in the first round is going to say the same things that you say, Dog. And then when they're down 3-1, they're going to go, uh-oh, we better get this thing going. Because they just come at you. They're very systematic. You look at some of their set plays 5-on-5 in the offensive zone, and it is like a power play. So they're on the same page. They're getting points from their D. I'm not sure if they can succumb like a big injury or two. That's the one thing. I'm not sure about the depth that they would have at the NHL level to bring up. But as we stand right now, great checking line in Wilson, Dubois, and McMichael. And then, I think Eller and Dowd are really good on the bottom 6 and obviously the top part. And if Ovechkin can score early in a series, then that just lights their fire. That just really sparks them up. But it will be interesting, though, Doug, because they've been sneaky. and they just come at you in four lines, and it's been quite a great story from their coaching staff all the way down to the spirit of their players. I've really enjoyed covering them and doing the games. Oh, dog, it's fun because they just don't stop and they don't quit no matter what the score is.
Well, and they got a number one goalie, right, in Logan Thompson. Like, he's going to play, and with other teams, including Toronto, you saw last night. Joseph Wally got pulled first time all year. He gave up 6 or 5 against Pittsburgh a couple of nights ago, and Stolarz is not a guy who's played a lot. He's barely played at all in the playoffs. When you look at the goaltending situation in particular in Toronto, Panger, where does your head go first when trying to predict how it's going to look in the playoffs?
Well, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, just before Stolarz was coming back from the injury, that we talked, and I said I would have no problem with coming back, and I believe, guys, that I got a check mark on that. I believe he won that game.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
But I don't think that they're playing with the kind of spirit in front as well. And so when that happens, I think this time of year we're seeing a lot of teams come out of that break, and they just have not had the momentum that they had before the break, or for whatever reason, the energy wise, maybe it's the top players that played in the Four Nations. It seems like it's not a coincidence that a lot of them are struggling. But I think, you think of two things when you're not playing with a whole lot of gumption in front. Your goaltender is going to have to be the first star for 3 or 4 games and get their heads out of their rear ends in front of them, or the team in front of them is going to have to really buckle down and start just playing harder defensive hockey in their own zone. So I have no problem with the goaltender of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think it's a good tandem, and I think things will settle down. Washington Capitals have a good tandem. Charlie Lindgren, he's the backup. You got Thompson there. You got a lot of teams in the NHL that have a two-headed monster, and you're probably going to need that here down the stretch while they're playing every other night. You guys looked at the schedule. It's every other night. It is crazy. Yeah. It is crazy. You're asking these thoroughbreds to get around that track, and you're whipping old Seabiscuit here and getting them to go faster. And it's not easy for these boys.
No, it isn't. Panger, is there anybody in the league that you kind of got your eye on and go, we're sleeping on them? Like, we obviously we focus on the Leafs a lot here in Toronto. We know they're a very good team. We talked about the Florida teams. Is there a team that you think flying under the radar? Is it the Dallas Stars or somebody that we're not given enough love that could really do some damage?
Yeah, I would say that's one team for sure. In my opinion, I think they're finally getting play from Robertson, and you're seeing. I think you even seen in Logan Stankoven that many predicted would be a Calder Trophy winner, and maybe some of that pressure early was a lot. But no, I really like the Dallas Stars. I like the Washington Capitals. I'm kind of one of those guys that I guess maybe because I've done quite a few of their games, and you just get to see them a little more often. I'm not. What other teams would I be sold at on? Boy, Tampa just made a trade, so that's a hard one to predict.
What about the Hurricanes, Panger? You buy in the Hurricanes or no?
You know what? Well, now I don't know. Now I don't know with the Rantanen situation and what's going to happen. And if he stays, is he going to find his game again? Is he going to be effective and blend into that system, or is he going to be a real powerful forward like he was in Colorado? So to me, that's just until we know that, I don't really have an answer. I think they're a really good team, and I think they can certainly get to a conference final. But right now at this point, I think he's obviously the main ingredient to see where they're going to go and what they're going to do.
Yeah, that one's fascinating, man. If he gets flipped again, we've never seen anything like it in the NHL if it ends up happening.
Anybody on the bottom of it? Anybody on the bottom, Hazy, that that has momentum that just gets in? Like last year, I thought that if Detroit just got in, could they scare a couple of teams and get on a run? Washington got in there with that poor goals for, goals against, but it didn't matter. They got in, and no matter how you call it, but they didn't come in with a ton of momentum. That's one thing to look for too, especially in the West when they've got that hard West schedule, and like the LA Kings of 2012, they were the 8th place team, and bang, they come roaring down the tracks and pounded everybody.
Yeah, I don't see any of those teams in the West. I don't think any of Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, Utah, any of them are going to scare anybody. But I think it's the East, and it could be, Washington as well. Like you said, they keep coming. They're going at you. But you look at Ottawa in particular. Ottawa's played them very well this year. Like I think they've beat them twice and lost once in overtime or a shootout a couple of nights ago. Like Allmark is the question mark. Like is he ready to play? If he's playing on his game, That's what I would think, Panger. Like you mentioned LA, and they were phenomenal defensively, well coached. But Jonathan Quick was Jonathan Quick, too, right? He was in his prime.
Yeah.
Where is it Allmark? Is it Shesterkin for the Rangers?
I was just going to say, what if it's the Rangers that sneak in at 8? Like, that team scares me. They do.
They would play Washington right now, wouldn't they?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like that's
so just like
I don't know
last
if Washington
year.
wants to see them.
I tell you what, that was a real good hostile game last night. Like, I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of good banter back and forth, and you could tell that there's the familiarity. You got some big boys. Tom Wilson started. He was getting a little ornery in that game. I thought his fuse was getting a little bit short, and the minute that can't remember who it was that bumped. Was it Rempe that bumped?
Rempe did.
It bumped Ovechkin, and Tom Wilson went right over to him, and Rempe said, "I'll bump whoever I want to bump." I mean, that would be a heavyweight matchup full of emotion.
Big time. And I guess they just picked up Soucy from Vancouver.
Carson Soucy.
Carson Soucy on his way to New York for the Rangers. So they traded a third-round pick for him. So, the Rangers are trying to get in, right? They're trying to get in.
That adds a little bit of size to them. Yeah.
Yep.
They've that's an interesting one. I mean, Fox will be back, but listen, Fox has got to pick up his game too. They got to figure some things out on that team. They got Zibanejad on that right side. They had JT Miller at the center ice position, although they can switch in the face-off duck because the one's a righty and one's a lefty. But I think they have some things still to sort out. I really sensed some frustration, in the third period when they couldn't get anything going, and Washington was playing a playoff game around the boards, hunkering in, holding on to pucks. They frustrated New York, and I saw a little frustration from line after line after line of the Rangers coming back in that third period into their bench.
It's going to be a great stretch run. Trade deadline tomorrow. We'll see what comes of it. He is Darren Pang of the NHL on TNT. Always great catching up with you, Panger. Thank you for doing this.
You guys as well. I wouldn't trade any one of you guys for any one of those guys. Okay.
Appreciate that greatly.
Thanks,
Appreciate that greatly. Thank you, Panger, for the pep talk on the way out. We love it. Carson Soucy. So Vancouver is selling, I guess, from that standpoint. Like he's, pending UFA, I believe. He's kind of been in and out of the lineup at times. But
what we're going to do, though, Brian, every guy that goes, you go, I could have seen him with the Leafs. I could have seen Edmonton. You know what I mean?
Depth.
Like, geez, I would have. The Leafs could give up a third rounder for that guy.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's what we're gonna do.
Yep.
Until these teams start to wheel and deal. I could see. I could have seen Ottawa in on that. You know what I mean? Like, there's lots of teams.
Kind of defenseman with some size, right?
Yeah.
And he can play with a little bit of bite too.
Yeah, he can.
So there you go. New York. I mean, New York's confusing a little because they've been selling on some pieces.
Dude, one of the weirdest seasons of all time. Like how it started with Trouba and then Kakko and Lavi's name was in the grinder. And then it's just – but through all of that, they've hung around and at least put themselves in a position.
They went and got that Will Borgman from Seattle, who's a really good right shot. Yeah, because he's a good number 4. And then they traded that Ryan Lindgren. And I was like, okay, that's interesting because they really liked him. And he's a guy who blocks shots. He's kind of like a left shot Tanev type of thing. Don't quote me on that. I'm just saying like he's that type of player, stay-at-home defenseman. So I was like, okay, they're changing. Now they go and get Soucy. So it's just like it's almost like they wanted to change the whole makeup of what's going on, but keep a lot. I mean, you look at they've got Miller and Trocheck down the middle. Like that's two good players. That Trocheck's he's a hell of a player. He's tough to play against. He's not a big guy, but man, he's a gamer. And that JT Miller and quietly that Panarin just sits there.
What is he up to? Almost 30? Is he at 30 goals or
dry
is he
hair
around there?
Hangs out on the boards, steps in.
He's a playmaker.
Shoots
that kid. He's not a kid anymore, but
but he's a good player.
Playmaker
they got
for
some
sure.
good players there, so we'll see.
All right, we'll see. There you go, Carson Soucy of Vancouver on his way to New York for a third-round pick. Best bets still to come. Dear Hayesy-B coming up, a rare Thursday appearance. We're here to help people on a Thursday. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
People send in a tweet. They write us for our professional advice on life things. Dear Hayesy-B, every morning my boiler has a gas leak. My wife thinks it's the baby.
Dear Hayesy-B.
If you want to come to Hayesy-B, I need honesty from you.
Hazy, you got dumped a lot. Tell me. Tell him.
Grown adults with birthdays, it's asinine.
All right, Dear Hayesy-B, brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy $15 lunch at BP, where you get an entree, a side, and a drink, and you'll get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza.
You know the deal.
We
Gonna
know the
read
deal,
you
so
some
to help
problems. And I think you guys are both well versed in this particular situation. Dear Hayesy-B, I'm attending a bachelor party soon, and it is set to be a doozy. My wife thinks we will be relatively tame and no special establishments visited. Not the case whatsoever. Do I tell her the game plan in advance or hope that I can smooth things over when I return?
So, let me.
Who-
Why, like,
Dude,
what
you
are
know
we
what it
talking about
is?
here? Like a full honesty relationship where all the details of the whole trip are laid out before you go, or
I don't even think
afterwards?
that's possible.
Exactly. And furthermore, when you come home, you land, and as long as you're not doing anything, stupid or whatever,
Sinister. Yes, exactly.
why do you have to tell all the plans? I don't really understand the full detail of the trip when you come home.
I just don't understand why you got to explain the whole thing.
Don't
because
explain anything. Just don't. Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible
I-
thing to say, but
don't know.
don't
It
say
is
anything.
because some guys partake
have
in
a
some
great
things
time.
and some guys don't partake in other things. It's like, why
Right.
does anything need to be explained?
I don't really know. As
But
long as you're not doing anything sinister, and we know what that would be, then just keep it on the up and up. Go have a couple pints and have a
But
good
it-
time.
I
you don't have
know.
to. There's no. On bachelor parties, you know how these itineraries change. Like it's like, hey, we're going here, and then you get there and everybody has a bunch of drinks and you pivot.
Right.
So to me, if you're going to share it with your significant, if you got a good enough relationship in that, you go, how was last night? Well, great. We did this, and this, and that's it. And we're doing this tonight. We got a plan. Like to me, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But you don't need to go, here's the plan. We're going to go 8 o'clock here, 10 o'clock we're going here. Like, nobody cares about
No,
that.
exactly. And it's not the way guys operate. Like, the
No.
itineraries, maybe you're lucky if there's a dinner at some point the majority of the guys make it to. For the most part, it's debauchery and just people are going to go their separate ways and do whatever they're going to do. And, yeah, I don't think you have to lay down the framework of what you're doing before you go. I would just say, we're going to figure out what's going on. We'll see what happens. And then on the way back, you make that call. If you say, hey, listen, we ended up doing this and everything's all good. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with honesty.
The problem is, if you want to come clean and admit to some itinerary and sewer the whole group,
That's
You're-
another
you
element
are-
that you have to
Yeah,
consider.
yeah.
Is
You're
if the other
asking
guys
for
are
it,
like,
man.
hey, we're not, we're just going to go and have a good time and everyone's going to go about their own business.
because there's always one dummy that will try to make himself look good and make like everyone else is an
Exactly.
animal, and he'll be like,
I
they're
didn't
gonna do
go, but you
no,
wouldn't
they're gonna
believe
do
where all
this
the
when
other
we're
guys
away,
are.
but man, I don't even go near that stuff, or I don't do this or that. Watch out for that guy,
Yes.
because he's probably the
Yeah.
biggest goon of them all.
He's the one, exactly.
Dude,
Wink,
he
wink,
is the
nudge,
one
nudge.
that waits for everyone to fall asleep and goes on a solo mission and does unthinkable things.
Yes.
Dear Hayesy-B, I am in my mid-30s and my fiance has requested I look into a CPAP machine for my snoring. I've gone the extra mile to lose a little weight, stop eating past a certain hour, and get a wedge pillow, whatever that is. None of this has worked. Am I destined for a cot in the garage, Hayesy-B?
No, I don't think so. But I don't personally use a CPAP machine, but I have seen them in use. They are a wild contraption. I will say that. It's a wild scene in there. There's a lot of noise. There's some wild stuff going on, but it's for your health. Which
I know,
would
dude,
like
but
to
that
believe.
machine, that Darth Vader machine, how do you even move with that thing?
I don't know how you could sleep with it on. I mean, obviously it is there to help you sleep and it's help your breathing patterns. But if you're a roll around guy, like, aren't you at all fearful of, joking out or something? Like, you got a lot of different contraptions going on there. You start flipping around and moving around, and that thing's
What
on your
about
face.
rolling over? The
That's what I'm
simple
saying. I don't
idea
think
of rolling over.
I don't think you can be a side sleeper. I don't think
No.
you
Yeah.
can. I think it's straight on your back. That's it, And I don't know. I mean, I think if it's got to a point where the CPAP's coming into play, that means it's a medical thing. You have to do it. So even if you get sent to a different room or something else, you got to do it. Can't mess around with that, man. You can't mess around. So hopefully she's going to come around and say, listen, what were the vows like? You know, CPAP and no CPAP? Like, did that come up in the vows when you're getting married? Is this a marriage thing? I would hope that she'll support it. Fire up the CPAP. Do your thing. Did they say they're married? Is that what they said? Or
Yeah,
no?
married.
Okay, yeah. No, then you got to go to CPAP. And whatever. If you're on the cot, you're on the cot. I mean, who cares? Maybe you do separate rooms. I've heard that's a big thing in the world these days. I've heard about that.
Dear Hazy-B, I've been helping my neighbor out around her house and assisting with shoveling during the snowstorms. She appreciates my help a lot and always invites me in for a coffee. And every time I go in the house, the outfits are becoming more revealing. Should I keep going in for coffee or call it quits from being less awkward around her?
Okay,
Thanks, guys. Dan and Vaughn.
This is the neighbor?
Yes.
Dan, let's be clear here. If you're accepting the invite and you're going in there, you have plans yourself. Who goes into their neighbor's house
Oh,
for
dude,
coffee?
Coffee is a neighborly thing. Like,
Not
it's just
every time. Hey, with a shovel, come on in for coffee. No, you know, it's not like you're farmers and the guy walked 3 miles down the road to help you shovel. Like, I've never been invited into one of my neighbor's house.
Yeah,
for
well,
coffee.
you sit and get pissed drunk in your neighbor's garages.
That's
What's
a
the
different
difference?
situation. That's not wives and husbands. You know, that's just the guys out there boozing and whatever. I don't like. I would personally be like, why am I getting the invite in for coffee? Like my radar would be going off immediately. And I think Dan knows what he's up to, and just be clear cut, Dan. Like I didn't hear anything about relationships and all that. I don't know what's going on with Dan.
I don't either.
But if it's two single people and you guys are into each other, do your thing. But if it's
So you think Dan, as soon as he says yes to the coffee, he knows what the deal is and he's just playing us as fools?
I would say
Probably.
so. Certainly by the second or third, every time Dan's dying to get out there to shovel, you know, the snow barely hits the ground and this guy's got a shovel out. Dan's a sneaky little devil.
Yeah.
Man. I think.
I mean,
know what
Dan,
this
I just
guy's
got to
deal is.
inform you that if it's snowing sideways and it's a blizzard and someone is at their front door in a bikini inviting you in for coffee, there's
Why are
probably
you
something.
writing us?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why do you need our help to interpret what's happening here?
Yeah.
It's a green light, and you got to make the call, I guess. I don't know. I can't speak to what's going on there, relationships and all that, but I seems to really appreciate the shoveling job. Good for you, Dan.
Dear Hazy-B, my buddy is insistent on wearing his Lucky Raptors tank top on a first date. He swears it never fails him. Should I sabotage his outfit for his own good or let him learn the hard way that playoff vibes aren't date night chic?
Go ahead, Noodles.
I don't know. I mean, I don't like wearing anything. To me, I think it's a no-go.
Yeah. I don't really understand why you would be obsessed with a Raptors tank top
I don't
for a
either,
date.
man.
Like, it's just a weird thing to kind of commit to. And but at the same point, it's like if you don't know it, the guy doesn't know it. He's just oblivious to it, or he's so committed to it. It really doesn't matter what you're going to say. You know, I don't know how you can help a guy out when he's that deep into it. You know, committed to.
I think you
clothing
just
item
let
like
him
that on
just
a date
burn.
night.
Like you let him burn up. And
Yeah,
be
just let
like,
him do his
Yeah,
thing.
if you want to be a loser and wear that stupid tank top out.
Hey, listen, you know what it also would
Right.
be? Maybe this guy's outsmarting the whole game, and he's like, if this woman is into me, and she'll be into me with this Raptors tank top, and he might be onto something. Okay. What else?
Dear
we got?
Hazy-B,
That's a
I made
weird
a
one.
serious mistake in telling my new boss how much I love college basketball. This is an issue because I pull off the annual I'm so sick I can't make it into routine for the first Thursday and Friday of the tourney every year. How do I pull this off this year? I need your help. Anonymous March Madness junkie.
This is I mean, obviously he knows he made a massive mistake. You cannot be blabbering about the fact that you love college football, basketball.
You don't say when you're in an office job. You don't tell anyone you
Nothing.
like anything. Man.
Nothing about what your personal program
Nothing.
is all about.
You
Nothing.
hate golf. You hate hockey. You hate the league. You hate it all.
Yeah, just don't even bring it. Oh, no, I missed that last night. You could be the biggest diehard on earth. It's not worth the icebreaker unless it's someone on the same level as you. But
Right.
with the boss, you can't be like, man, I love Duke basketball. I love this Cooper flag, college basketball. And then on the Thursday of the tournament, I'm not feeling well. I'm not going to be in there the next. You got to come up with a new excuse.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You got to start planting the seed today. You got a couple of weeks because you're not going to pull it off. The sick thing, your boss is going to sniff that out. He or she is not an idiot. Heard you say what you said. You know you threw up a radar that is troublesome. And I think you got to come up with some other explanation as to why you're not going to be there, because I know what you're going through. If you love college basketball, those first 2 days are the greatest thing on earth. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It
Always
tips off
upsets.
at noon. Oh, it's amazing. From noon until midnight, there's games going on. And, there's 16 the first day, 16 the second. You can't beat it. It's incredible theater. But you can't say you're sick because they're going to sniff that out. You wasted that bullet. Unfortunately, you got to come up with something else.
People will read right through that nonsense.
Yeah, you missed your opportunity there. Disappointing, but you got to get creative. Start planting a seed on something else, whatever it might be. You got to find a different way to miss work, because the sick thing's not gonna happen.
Dear Hazy-B, the last one. With golf season on the horizon, my group of buddies have booked a trip to Cabot. 4 rounds plus Fox Harbor beforehand. With Hazy-B being a stick and beating O-Dog this summer, can the boys walk me through the best way to do a boys trip or the golf dream trip?
Okay. I don't know what he's referencing there, me beating you. Is he saying this summer I'm going to finally beat you?
I don't know. It hasn't happened yet.
I have not beaten you in stroke play yet. I believe when it comes to the handicap system, I have done that.
I don't believe that's happened. I don't.
I'm pretty sure.
Let's just start playing for Indos.
Okay, but you got to get your cap system. You come in. You're like, I'm like a 3. You got to get your number dialed in. You get your
I'll get it dialed in, man. Don't worry.
Get it dialed, because I want indexes and everything, and we'll put it on the line. Well, I mean, this trip is a once in a lifetime. Here would be my suggestion. Have a good time, but be ready to play golf. And I'm saying that, I know that sounds like, you're such a loser. No, if you're a big golfer, going to Cabot is a once in a lifetime thing.
Now, here's what you got to do before you even plan the trip. You book the trip, but you go for dinner with everybody or go for lunch or something and say, guys, whatever age you are, because this can always change, what is your first priority? You want to drink or do you want to golf?
Right.
Because if you're drinking, it ain't golfing.
No, it's exactly. You're not playing 36. You're not.
When I go on a serious golf trip, I don't drink. I just want to golf all day long if I can. Yeah.
I want to play golf, and I want to soak it all in. I want to play well. So I would suggest, if it's golf, get your game dialed in. Hit the range a lot before you go. Be ready to play, and go out there and have everything set up before you go. Who's playing with who? What are the handicaps if you're going to play some games and all that kind of stuff, and set it up and just make it bigger than ever, man. There's nothing like it. It's the epitome of an escape, by all accounts. Cabot, you're in the middle of nowhere. It's a golf course, and that's it, man.
Turn it into a party, though. Enjoy
well,
yourself.
but that's what we're saying, Noodles. You would be the guy that you'd fall asleep on the 18th green. And
the other thing is, like, if the guy that's your partner and you're playing for money is just crushed until 6 in the morning, and he's a good player and you have no chance of winning, it's not fun. That's where it gets awkward.
That is very harmful. Yeah. If you're doing like a team game, and your guy is so hungover and he's like, I don't think I have it, and you're like, man, you're giving everyone strokes. What are you doing? You're killing me here.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure everyone's on the level. Everyone's ready to go. I would suggest with a place like that, you make sure you guys are dialed in and ready to play, and make sure you get your clubs there, right? Like, do whatever you can to make sure you've got everything taken care of. Like nowadays, you look at, I did this when I took my clubs on the road, like the QI30, you get the TaylorMade stuff. You can just pop the head right off the driver, the 3-wood, 5-wood, 7-wood, protect the new irons.
Dude, I put eyes on the new P790s today. Oh, my God.
They're so sick.
They're
the most beautiful looking golf club of all time.
Yes. You guys are just chomping at the bit.
I can't wait to play these P790s, these irons, Noodles. It's such a golf nerd thing, but they are so sick.
It is, but it's the iron that we both like, and we saw the new ones today, but we're obsessed with that one club. Other people like 770s. We're 790 guys.
Right.
It's the best one they've ever made.
Yeah, it's a rock star club. It is a sick iron, and everyone's playing them. Like, you look at Rory's. Man, I'm leaning like I might pick Rory first for the Masters when we get to it. He was 2 under today. He's moving the ball
Kind of got a
around.
vibe to him, doesn't he?
He just won at Pebble. He's, everything is coming up Rory McIlroy right now. He looks great. And, like, Bay Hill is playing so tough. Scheffler said the greens are like concrete. And Scheffler was 1 under today. McIlroy 2 under. But, yeah, I'm leaning
I don't
McIlroy,
mind.
man.
Like, I don't need to see these guys shooting 30 under. Like,
I love
like
it
to
at
see
a course like this. Make
Yeah.
them play tough, man. Make them play tough. Like last week, there's going to be other weeks. Next week will be tough for the players, and they're going to get to courses where they shoot. They're in Hawaii. They're shooting 35 under. That's going to happen. But Bay Hill, make it tough. And, yeah, Rory and Scheffler, they're in the hunt, and Corey Connor's in the hunt. It's going to be a great couple of weeks of golf. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
All right, we'll come back with our best bets powered by FanDuel. And one more look at what we could expect between now and 3 p.m. tomorrow. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm on the Jets to win tonight in Philly. They've lost a few in a row. Tonight's the night. You only got to pay like minus 140 on that. It's a bit of juice, but I like Winnipeg. Winnipeg gets off the snide tonight. And I'm on the over in the Columbus-Florida game tonight. Columbus is a high-wire act. They score a lot of goals. I think Florida, there's a little bit of transition going on. I wonder about these teams that are in the hunt for moves between now and the trade deadline tomorrow. So that parlay paying plus 263. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Live same-game parlays are now available for every NHL game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly, 19+, physically located in Ontario. All right, well, tomorrow's we'll be there bright and early. We'll see what comes of it. But, yeah, I guess a lot of these guys, some guys aren't playing tonight. Some guys are going to play tonight.
Well, Rantanen's playing tonight.
Rantanen's playing, exactly.
At least there wasn't a bunch of, like, mega deals this morning. Like, even if they happen tonight, we can go over them tomorrow.
Exactly. Like, by tomorrow, what is going to be clearer here is this Mikko Rantanen story likely goes up to 2:59 p.m.
Yes.
I would think. Unless he gets dealt or, for whatever reason, Carolina just sends out a mass email, we're out. And I don't see why they would do that. Like, if you're going to call and wait to see if a team's maybe going to pay a significant price to get them.
Do you guys not find that's like that whole thing to be as bizarre as I do?
It's completely bizarre that they might flip them again in 6 weeks. And it's just the craziest thing I've ever seen in terms of a player and trades and the trade deadline.
I don't know. I'm only getting them if I know I'm going to keep them in the fold.
Well, they clearly didn't have that answer, and they didn't get the answer they wanted from him, earlier this week. So the Rantanen story will be out there. I think, what does Boston do? What does St. Louis do? What do the Islanders do? Those are teams I'm, kind of circling and wondering are they going to start, the wave of, okay, we're making trades and we're selling. And we'll see what the Canadian teams end up doing, because I would expect they're all going to be active in one way or the other.
Right.
And, Vancouver, Brock Besser, does he get traded between now and tomorrow? I'm not sure.
If he said no to 5 times 8, I think he gets traded.
I think I think they got to move away. I don't know what Vancouver's doing. It's okay. We're going to say this. Hayes, you and I are going to be on tomorrow. Oh, we're all over. We're going to be together. Is there going to be something crazy tomorrow that all three of us go?
I really do think so.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some team or something that comes over the top and does something that's way bigger than expected. That's what I think.
I'm hoping for that, because that's all you need. You get one monster that starts,
dominoes, right?
Percolate, exactly. Like, you're not going to believe what's going on here. And then that gets us through everything. It'll be a great day. 8 a.m. tomorrow, Trade Center, all across TSN platforms. We look forward to that. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out today, everyone for tuning in today, TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate it. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Shovel that driveway. Take what's yours. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.